Thanks, Ed, for joining us on Talking Tech. It's the Yojee story. For people to really understand it, I think they need to have a bit of an understanding of the logistics process. If I send a parcel from here to Singapore, there's a whole bunch of steps that parcel goes through. Could you, just to kick things off, start out with that process, and then later on we can sort of dive in deeper into where you guys come in, basically, in the process?
Sure. It's a good question, I think. I think most industries don't have an understanding of the logistics process, right? And that's a lot to do with the technology that's been in place for a long time. So there's lots of different acts and movements of goods to get something from one end of a supply chain to the other, whether it's Singapore to Australia or even within Australia. There's lots of different actors participating in that movement. So it's very hard for people to actually see what's happening in that movement, and even for the carriers themselves to organise things, because you've got the rise of the subcontractor and the network partner to keep those fixed costs down. And then you lose visibility by going to drivers outside of your existing asset base. So once you place an order, usually someone will be assigned to pick up that job.
Yep. That
someone may be the company you booked it with, or it may be someone else, depending on where you are and the volume through the network at that point. As you know, with e-commerce, the volume changes are just staggering across the industry. Yeah. So you have this problem where people need instant supply of assets, but don't necessarily have the visibility over what those assets are doing. So to pick something up in Melbourne, it needs a last mile, first mile courier maybe, which will then go to a warehouse. Then to go to Singapore, it needs to go in a truck. It'll be consolidated to an airport or to a ship. Then it's unloaded again in Singapore. Then it'll go for a truck to another warehouse. And then it will be broken down into parcels or pallets and then distributed to the end recipient. So there's a number of movements there which all have a significant cost to the business. Meanwhile, you have people at both ends trying to work out where their item is, and that's a significant cost if you don't know. So I've heard quotes of, in Australia, $6 to $7 per phone call it costs the operators to respond to someone about where their parcel is, because
there goes your margin, basically.
That's your margin completely gone as soon as someone calls up.
Right. Okay. So where do you guys fit in terms of your software solution? So in this very complicated chain, how do you sort of get rid of the friction?
So we have gone into a very unique space in the industry. We very early worked out that the virtual network was the thing that everyone needed to operate, because essentially no one now operates end-to-end with their own assets and their own technology, and they reach out through the API connection, which I think everyone's got the milestone, right? This is where it is, it's at this warehouse and it's at the next warehouse. Our vision was to give people real-time trackability across a network, control towers with real-time analytics to improve their business, artificial intelligence to optimize the movement to create that margin, and then provided in a very easy to install software. So essentially we can set up any type of company with a login on a web page and a download of a driver app. So you're talking in a matter of hours to get people rolled out with our software to an operational model. So it's very lightweight, from everyone from the UPSs and the DB Schenkers that we've been working with, all the way down to the mum and dad shops that want to be partners. And so it gives everyone an opportunity across the supply chain, and it can be pushed down through the subcontractors by the parent businesses. And instead of printing out a sheet of jobs and passing it to someone saying, here's what you're doing today, whether it's a subcontractor or a driver, it's all digital, it's all seamless, and it's just a click of a button and everyone knows what they're doing across the network. Yeah,
so you're bringing a tremendous amount of flexibility into the workflow as well then.
Yeah, so it's something that I don't think has been seen before across the industry, where everyone has built software and it's very siloed. This is my business, this is how I operate. And once it goes beyond my business, I know nothing. And so we've sort of broken that up through the API capabilities of modern technology, where you can press a button, assign it, you can pass the information about the job. The other company can see the information about the job, but they can't see the information about your business, which is very obviously valuable. So it enables people to collaborate seamlessly without sharing too much the information they don't want to share.
Yeah. Okay. So looking at the workflows, how come these sometimes very big logistics companies don't have their own state-of-the-art software for this? I mean, the software that I've seen is very outdated, is probably the best word to describe it. So how come with their deep pockets they haven't sort of fixed this issue?
It's very difficult, I think, for big businesses to execute on new technologies. Obviously, there's a lot of stakeholders in that process. There could be tens or dozens of people at meetings to work out what is the next thing we need, and this is a very difficult thing for them to navigate internally. You know,
Right.
building a new product, big budgets, big teams, slow progress, lots of bureaucracy. So the big companies have suddenly seen guys like Amazon and Alibaba spending a lot on that side of things and realize they need to race to market with something. And they know that they've missed the bus essentially of building it themselves. So they start to look out to the market at who are the guys that are building the type of technology that can make us compete with guys like Amazon and Alibaba, more agile, more visible, better customer experience, cost savings through the artificial intelligence. So that's what we see happening across the market, all the way through from forwarders to express courier companies.
Right. Okay. And then switching to blockchain, which I think in logistics is a huge future ahead. Can you talk about how Yojee is working that technology into the workflows, and basically what your sort of competitive edge is in that space?
Yeah, so I mean, blockchain I think is still a bit of a mystery to a lot of people, and a good example of where blockchain is useful is Australia's just seen the strawberry crisis, which was a big supply chain problem essentially. So somewhere across the supply chain there was a problem where people were tampering with the strawberries.
Yeah.
And the way that, you know, we've talked about earlier through this discussion, that there's no visibility across the supply chain with the technology that exists, so no one really knew where the problem was occurring because there was no tracking of where the strawberries that got to that supermarket, where they were through the supply chain and which farm they were on.
Yeah.
So the idea that blockchain gives you responsible supply chain, so you're talking about the problems of, you know, slavery and other things across developing markets where manufacturing's been done, all the way down to that provenance and proof of existence. So what you want to be able to do is create a ledger where you can store the information about something so that it cannot be tampered with in the future, and it makes that sequence of events immutable. So you want to know, this Penfolds Grange bottle that I've produced in South Australia goes into China with this serial number at this point in time, and it can only be at this store. And obviously one bottle of Penfolds Grange can't be in 3 stores at once across the world. Right. So it creates an immutable ledger for these types of things, which are very high value. You know, Penfolds Grange, thousands of dollars worth of product in a small item, easily to counterfeit. So you need to be able to track the origin of that in a way where it can't be hacked and it can't be muted, and there's a source of truth which is agnostic to the carrier, to the shipper. It's just a source of truth that people can refer to.
Right. So in addition to just logistics software, to put it simply, there's a whole opportunity for you guys out there in terms of supply chain integrity.
Absolutely. So that integrity word is really important. So by creating that end-to-end solution that we have, where you can track something across multiple movements, across multiple companies, and we're not just getting a milestone, we're getting the GPS footprint, we're getting the timestamps. Yeah. So all of that information creates data integrity, and that's the most valuable thing in any blockchain solution. It's not difficult to hash something to a blockchain, but to get authentic and real-time information to be able to feed that then makes sense to someone that's viewing it is very difficult in the existing technologies across the market. So we're bringing a lot of value in that proof of provenance, proof of existence to the blockchain, and eventually we'll see it move to things like smart contracts for cross-border, you know, which IBM and Maersk have been working very hard on. So there's lots of opportunities in contracts and payments also through blockchain technology. Yeah.
Where are you in the rollout of that technology?
So we've been doing a lot of work in that provenance piece. We think that's the first move. You know, more and more consumers are looking at, are my organic apples organic? Which warehouses did they go through, and are they organic certified? And which farm did it come from? Is that organic certified? So, you know, the second phase of this visibility thing, which, you know, Uber and Amazon introduced to us, is people are becoming aware that you can actually know more about what you're buying and not just see it arrive in real time, but see where it was from with a lot of transparency, and they're starting to demand that. So that's a really important area we're moving on. We think that the payments and smart contracts will come along over the next couple of years with a lot of strength, but that relies obviously on industry-wide adoption. So essentially we're ready for that, but we haven't executed the technology on that at this point. Right.
So what is the opportunity for Yojee? So basically I see two. So one is the logistics software, but then maybe a few years out, there might be an even bigger opportunity in supply chain integrity.
Yeah, so we see two big points that we're going to add value to the market. The first is that virtual network, which I spoke about, which is letting shippers, carriers, and partners work together seamlessly. So that's a big inflection point that we've got through in the recent upgrades to our software, where we're starting to get partners onto our platform, and the one initial customer becomes through 2 or 3. And that means that we can start to grow organically through networks as people demand more visibility.
Yep.
By doing that, we're creating those larger virtual networks where we can get a lot of information about what's flowing across these networks and provide the ability for people to move things to places they didn't know they could move things to through the network, and also to provide integrity of that movement, which I think is going to be extremely valuable. And that's something that I think everyone wants to get to, but technology over the last few decades has not allowed any of that type of thing to happen.
Yeah, okay. And so looking then at how you can commercialize that, can you talk a little bit about the model, initially, specifically, I should say, for the virtual network? How you make money off of that?
So we run a software as a service business. So it's a 24-month contract is our fairly standard term. We have a license fee, and then we have a transaction fee. A transaction fee is per movement. So if you have 3 movements of a good to get from Perth to Sydney, that's 3 transaction fees to the business.
Okay.
So by adding value visibility across the chain, we charge for each movement to provide that visibility. So that's how we do that.
What's a sort of a rough number for that? I can imagine it depends on the size of the parcel or the pallet, whatever it might be.
Correct. So you're looking at about 25 cents Australian as an average price. And depends on obviously the size of the business, the number of transactions, and the commitment.
All right. So looking out, say 12, 18 months, what are you looking to achieve? What are the key milestones for you guys to get to?
Yeah, we've got a big space in Southeast Asia. It's almost, some say, up to 60% of the world's logistics marketplace. You look at the sector, they now valued about $9 trillion across logistics. You've got Australia's about a $110 billion industry. And they say the Big Four owns about 10% of that. And we know even the Big Four are subcontracting a large amount of their work. So our focus is on getting through these companies, the SMEs, the tier ones, the multinationals that need support on the ground across Southeast Asia and beyond. So working at selling that software, getting the number of users up over the next 12, 24 months, and beginning to introduce that virtual network piece, which is even becoming valuable just in our Singapore sort of sandbox version at the moment, where we see a lot of growth out of that as guys doing e-commerce are pushing more and more jobs into our virtual network to cover their e-commerce rises in demand. And obviously Christmas coming up will be a time when no one has enough vehicles and they're trying to find a way to move things. And we've got a pool of vehicles there ready to help businesses with their work. We provide visibility to them because we're on the same software, and it also attracts new customers to us because they want to come and do that work through the Christmas period, the SMEs and the mum and dad logistics businesses. So quite an exciting time.
I meant to ask about that as well. It seems like from a commercial perspective, if you've got one customer, they will introduce it to others as well in the chain. So what sort of effect are you seeing from that? So an oil spill effect, I guess, or a snowball effect, whatever you want to call it.
Exactly right. So it's once we get a carrier with partners, we start to see over the last few months as we've released the new seamless software that they're introducing their partners and sometimes sending letters to their partners saying that we'd like you to do this to continue working with us because it's not just we want this, but our customers are demanding this. Our customers are demanding visibility. We want to move paperless. We don't want to do any of the paperwork anymore in the processing because the impact of this that we see from customers is sometimes a third or a quarter of the payment period. Once they can get things signed on glass at the end of the delivery, the proof of delivery is instantly back with the accounting team who can instantly invoice, as opposed to waiting that 3-5 days to get the invoice back, processing it over the next 7 days and then putting out the invoice. So you're seeing a rapid increase in payment and cost collection. In places like Indonesia, if you don't have that bit of paper, you're not getting paid, and that gets lost. So it takes a lot of error and lost revenue from these businesses as well.
Well, good stuff, Ed. Thank you very much for coming in. And it seems like there's a lot to look forward to in terms of from an investment point of view. So we'll keep a close eye out for the company.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. We're very excited about the next 12 months. So look forward to keeping in touch.
Great. Thank you very much.
You.